Hi, I'm Michael Floyd, and I'm the head of developer marketing here at Sumo Logic. And I'm also a former journalist, having worked with Dr. Dobbs Journal and PC Magazine and many other publications. And in that time, I've interviewed many rockstar developers. And I'm joined here today with two very well-known developers, Fred Simon, co-founder and chief architect of JFrog, and Stefan Zier, chief architect of Sumo Logic. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Very good.
Very good. How are you, Michael?
Good.
Very nice to be here.
Thank you. Fred is the co-founder of JFrog. He's one of the most respected software architects in the software development community, with over 20 years in open source and Java experiences. Right. And Stefan was Sumo's first engineer and chief architect. He enjoys working on cloud plumbing, and my favorite is he's plotting to automate his job fully so that he can spend more time skiing. So, all right, so we're here to talk today about optimizing continuous integration and delivery using advanced analytics. As DevOps teams deliver faster and automate more, we see an increase in complexity. So, and as automation continues, it obscures complexity. So fortunately, your tools leave a trail of sorts in the form of logs and events. Mining information out of those event logs can tell you a lot about things like the health of your code base, the velocity of your team, and many other types of things. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So let's get started. Fred, can you tell us a little bit about JFrog, its roots in the open source community, and what motivated you to start a company?
So the company actually started from the product itself. So the product started as scratching an itch. As a good developer, I had a problem. Let's try to automate, like Stefan said, and let's try to write software that automate my job instead of doing it by hand. And so the issue was how to manage software components and how to manage all the open source software that every developer is using out there were increasing exponentially, and today, I mean, it's quite impressive. There is no single piece of software and single application that is created from scratch. You always aggregate a lot of things that are already done out there. And so we created Artifactory with Yoav Landman, the CTO and co-founder of JFrog. And it worked really good, and the first release was Christmas 2006, and it was a very successful open source project. It catched up very rapidly, and so we decided to create a company around it, and so we created a company in 2008. And today, the way we define ourselves is to be in the business of speed, so release fast or die. Basically, this is what our customer and our users are experiencing, is that software is created and adapted to the demand of the users, and you need to adapt the software as fast as you can. And a lot of the process between an idea about what you want to do in your software, the actual writing of the software, and putting the software in the hand of the end users, a lot of this process used to be manual and can be fully automated. And this is what we are doing at JFrog, is providing the tools that enable this flow. And the main reason we are here is that things are flowing, and so they need to be monitored, they need to be watched, and they need to be logged.
Stefan, you started Sumo Logic very early on. Can you tell us what Sumo Logic is and describe kind of the problem you were trying to solve back in the day when Sumo was starting?
Sure. So Sumo Logic is a log management service in the cloud. And you know, we're not the first log management product ever created. In fact, all of us worked at log management or with log management products before, or on log management products before. But what we saw time and again was that customers struggled to just keep them running once you got beyond a certain scale. So we talked to customers that were spending more than half their time keeping the product running as opposed to using the product, which is really what they're trying to get out of it. At around that same time, it was back in 2010, we all attended a talk by Werner Vogels of Amazon Web Services. He's the CTO there. and sort of had this eye-opening moment about this new way of building software and deploying software. And so Christian and Kumar, the two founders, set out to get funding for the company and brought me in sort of as soon as they had something going there. And so we built this as a pure play SaaS elastic scaling system from the ground up, right? And that gives you a lot of benefits. You get updates automatically. You don't have to worry about managing machines. You get sort of everything just works, and there's experts here in the building that worry about keeping it working, so you don't have to, basically. So now 100% of the time you use is spent actually using the product.
Great. So we have two companies both providing tools. In fact, both Sumo Logic and JFrog are customers of each other. We'll get to the partnership in a minute, but first let's talk a little bit about the development process. So Stefan, I know that Sumo Logic incorporates the continuous delivery pattern in its process. Walk us through kind of a typical build cycle, say when something gets cherry-picked.
Sure. So it usually starts with a check-in. We use GitHub as our main code repository. A developer pushes into a branch, creates a pull request, and two things happen in parallel. Other developers go review the pull request, and our Jenkins tool chain kicks off a set of tests that happen against that branch to make sure sort of nothing is broken in that branch. And once that green tick mark appears, and sort of everyone's happy with the code, we merge it into master. There's a whole set of Jenkins jobs running off of master that builds artifacts. And so we run a microservices architecture. Our current system consists of about 40 different microservices. So depending on what code you touched, one or more of those microservices will get built, and there's going to be a new binary that we push up into both Artifactory and S3. And once that happens, we have an integration deployment that automatically gets the update pushed into it. So it's called Night. So Night has a constant stream of new versions of microservices that get pushed into it. And sort of in a cycle, we run a set of integration tests there. Once the integration tests pass, we label the build as a gold star build. And that means it's sort of eligible to continue onwards on the path to production. Usually it goes within a few hours from being a gold star to a deployment we call long, which is our longevity test deployment that we internally use to monitor production. And after a few hours or sometimes days there, we then roll it out into production. The rollout to long and production right now is not fully automatic. We're working on that. In fact, there's an active project going on right now to make that more continuous than we do right now. Some of the older services are on a weekly cycle. The newer ones are on more frequent cycles, where whenever there's good reason to push an update, we push an update, but we really want it to be much more frequent than that going forward.
I see.
And so Artifactory's role in that is, the code that goes into each of these microservices consists of somewhere in the order of 200 plus Java modules, jar files basically. And so as all of these modules build, get tested, we push them up to Artifactory, and then when we assemble one of the microservices, we pull them down from Artifactory and basically make a binary that is a distributable that we can push to AWS.
Great. And Fred, how does that kind of compare with how JFrog does continuous delivery?
Yeah, it's very, very similar. So we started with Artifactory, was an on-prem, so we were an open source software because we created, and so we said, how can we monetize something that our customer and users already got for free? And we had the same moment, so it was 2009. But we said, okay, let's provide it as a SaaS solution. We will take care of the environment. We will take care on Amazon Web Services of the service, And so the customer, even if it's an open source product, will pay us for actually managing the software and managing the services. So we launched on end of 2009 the SaaS version of Artifactory. And since then, we have this, it was quite early for a lot of our customers. We saw that they are not. We are releasing to the SaaS platform, to the cloud platform. So Artifactory was not much microservices at the time, and it's still made of 3 services today. We plan to cut it into way more microservices. Bintray, which is our second pure SaaS product, is made of more than 30 microservices also. But for Artifactory, what we do is that we release to the cloud in an automated way, about the same. So we have a cloud promotion pattern where every build is first integrated on a test, and then on the staging environment where there is a bunch of automation about creating new servers, testing them, and in all kind of different configuration. And once we have something running in the cloud for some time, then we release the zip kind of version to the end customer and to all our other customers. So the cloud customer, they get the update and they get the monitoring, and we are taking care of everything. But out of it, we are extracting an on-prem version that some of our customers are using and deploying. But yeah, the end goal is exactly what Stefan is. A developer is creating some code, and he needs to get the feedback about the impact of what he did all the way to production. It has a cost to do something wrong in terms of memory management or CPU or things like that has a cost. And the fact that you have to interact with people to get this feedback doesn't make much of a sense. The machine knows better that they are suffering a lot more than someone looking at the log.
Great. So Stefan, at one point Sumo Logic used a different tool for its artifact repository. What were some of the issues you faced? What were you why did you kind of make the change over to Artifactory?
It was sort of the classical on-prem versus SaaS discussion, right? We had a build engineer at the time who spent a good amount of his day just attending to this artifact repository that we ourselves had, in 2010 deployed into AWS and were running, and it was constantly running out of disk space. AWS instances every once in a while go away. So we had a lot of issues and downtime with it that affected 70, 80 developers whenever they occurred, because no one can build anything once that tool is down, right? It's sort of a mission critical tool. And then the guy had to spend a lot of his time either manually attending to it or eventually writing and maintaining scripts to attend to it. And it was just not a good use of anyone's time, right? There's nothing differentiated about running this part of our development pipeline. So we decided to go to a tool that is, a SaaS basically, and where there's experts in a different building that know the thing inside and out and who run it for us. And that's very much in line sort of with our philosophy, right? Whenever we can, we consume something as a SaaS because we're a pure play SaaS, and we understand what's better about SaaS, right? And so it seemed like a good fit for us, and it has turned out, we've run with it for like a year-ish now. It's turned out to be a great tool. Like we've never had an issue with it. We've been super happy with it.
Awesome. And Fred, we know JFrog uses Sumo Logic to gain visibility across the network, your logs. But what many don't realize is that you personally had significant input on the Sumo Logic app and what went into the dashboards. So what were you trying to achieve, or what were you trying to expose in terms of visualizing data?
Yeah, so Artifactory is like a hub. So we used to think about software packages as some kind of package that is put into a truck and delivered to some place, from one place to another. And so Artifactory was keeping track of which one are created, which one are used, and which one where it is. And with the increase of the speed at which we are actually creating the packages, and the reduction of the size of those packages, so every small software modules is, we actually visualize it a lot more like a flow. It's really a continuous flow of bytes and binaries and softwares that is created, tested, distributed, and things like that. And so once you have this continuous flow of things going in and out from all kind of different platform and different tests and different environment, having the vision and having the monitoring of what's going on is getting really, really important. And so Artifactory doesn't have any workflow or whatever, but it's getting all the requests from all those different players, from the developers early on for their third party, from the Jenkins when he wakes up and do his first build, from the integration tests, and from the stress tests, and from the production and all this kind of environment. And so extracting from the interaction of all those tools with Artifactory a picture of what's actually going on was immediate benefit for everyone, because so we use for our SaaS platform the full Sumo logic, and we monitor all the events to all the different SaaS. And even with you, we use Sumo logic to give Stefan feedback about his Docker usage of Artifactory and where are the actual test platform. So it's a feedback, and with the partnership, we hope to give even more to our common customers, where they can have this visibility. With the advent of new technology and new development, to know exactly how much a test platform, an integration test platform is consuming, where it's consuming, and how it's behaving, you can actually see bottlenecks, and you can actually see improvement that you can make, and you can visualize also the efficiency of your continuous delivery and continuous integration platform. So, and of course, I mean, one of the first usage is still, and I think Sumo logic is making his bread and butter, is problem solving. Okay, it's still software, and still has problem from time to time.
No.
And you need to find
There's no bugs.
no bugs. I mean, undocumented features. So to find out what's really going on and get to the heart of the issue, with microservices, something like Sumo logic is critical. Okay, we used to have one big software which is creating his own log on his own environment, and so you go there and you analyze and you can try to debug it. When you have 40 microservices that interact with each other and you want to understand what's going on, if you don't have a log aggregator that can provide an overview of what is it, it's just mission impossible. So this is, I mean, a cluster and a microservice environment. It's a really, really important part of just fixing things.
So using dashboards and searches, one might expect to learn a few things about kind of your code base, the state of your development process, maybe even the velocity of your team. What are some of the kind of use cases you see for the app?
Yeah. So we need to start using, by the way, the GitHub, and so we use Stash at JFrog, and we use, Bitbucket at Atlassian. So the first part of the developer is still playing with the version control system, is still modifying files. And so the velocity of the branch and the different commits and getting feedback here. So there is a great app from Sumo on this part. From our side is really when there is a pull request that need to go through and that need to, how long it takes for this specific pull request to be rejected as fast as possible or to be accepted as fast as possible also. This is the kind of data that we could extract from today. What we get back from the dashboard is more the performance of the different environment, of the different stage. We don't have, it's always easier to see the performance of a stage. But the flow of a specific pull request is there. It's something we could totally monitor.
Cool. So that leads us to the partnership. Last month, Sumo Logic and JFrog announced a partnership and introduced a new solution that's going to allow JFrog users to access advanced analytics and metrics right from Artifactory. And so first I wanted to say there's a webinar scheduled for July 21st that walks users through the integration. The URL is on the screen right now. So if you go there, you can register for the webinar and learn more about that. But Fred, can you kind of just very briefly, knowing that there's this webinar that they're going to be able to kind of go through, but just kind of tell us a little at a high level about what Artifactory users are going to experience. What's the kind of flow? How's this going to appear in the UI? What's that integration going to look like?
So basically inside Artifactory, we use a logback to do our own local logging from the Java application, and so instead of, on top of logging these logs to the file system, from the Artifactory UI, you will be able to declare your Sumo Logic account and actually get a Sumo Logic account out of the box with the full OAuth integration that we developed together, to have this log directly sent to a Sumo Logic dashboard, which was designed by us together, by JFrog and Sumo Logic. And so get immediately this analytics about what's going on the Artifactory environment and Artifactory server. And like I said before, this is something that is critical when you are in a cluster environment and a multi-service environment. So all those different logs will be aggregated into one single account. And so the dashboard will enable you to visualize which of your build servers are downloading how much, and if you're maxing out, one of the first things that we got out of it is, for example, we found out that one of the build agents kept downloading the same things and uploading the same thing, and it was actually slowing down just by the amount of network usage that he was doing just on this specific build machine. And so to split those kind of things really helped. There is way more about deploy time, about access, and of course all kind of security if someone is trying to access your server and all this kind of information. And sometimes for our big customer also, they like to see when you have multiple departments and multiple teams, you want to see which team is doing what, and which maybe there is a more efficient way to separate inside Artifactory or to separate Artifactory itself. In a distributed way for those different pieces. And so those kind of analytics are there inside Artifactory. Inside Artifactory, inside Sumo Logic Analytics.
Got it. Well, thanks for joining us today, Fred.
Welcome.
Enjoy.
That was really good.
Stefan, thanks for coming.
Enjoying.
And thank you, and don't forget to visit the webinar.